Hey, this is Moke. What's up? I'm back once again, going to talk about Earth Defense Force 5. I really like this game. Now, in my review video, I made references saying I thought it felt like a reboot of 4.1. I was having difficulties doing that video with my software, so I left a lot of stuff out. I was going to add in some comparisons. So I figured I'd do this video since I've got things straightened back out. So I'm going to do some comparisons to some of the levels, some of the characters from EDF 4.1 to now. But afterwards I got to thinking, it's not really fair to call this a reboot. Looking back on it, EDF 4.1 was a total reboot of 2025. It added a few missions, a couple tweaks in the landscape here, but it was basically the exact same game. So EDF 5 ain't that much of a reboot. Yes, there's a lot of similarities, but I'm going to get into that. The one thing that I did leave out in my review video was I'm not a big fan of how they changed the Soldier's chants. Now that new song is okay, I can deal with it, but I guess because I heard it so much playing 4.1 to save our Mother Earth from any alien attacks, I like that better than the new one. I mean, the EDF deploys. So I did forget to mention that. I wish they'd have left that in there. And hey, add the new one in there as well, but leave the old ones. But that's just a little minor complaint. The game is good. So let's get to some comparisons. First on my list, I'm going to look at the drones. These first drones are on 4.1. Now I like the look of these a little bit better. I like that metallic look. And with them being a smaller drone, I found them to be a little bit more harder to shoot. On EDF 5, the one drones have the more classic flying saucer alien look to it, but I find it much easier to shoot. And then you have the, why as I called it before, the propeller looking one. I don't really care that much for that one, the look of it. Out of all the enemy changes, this is the one I had the most problem with. Why change the dragons? Dragons are much more intimidating than a tadpole. I walk outside and I see a dragon fly by, I'm going to shit my pants and run. If I walk outside and I see a tadpole or even a frog with wings fly by, I'm just going to think, this smoke was a little stronger than I thought. I'm tripping balls. No, they shouldn't have changed the dragons. Dragons are much more intimidating. Dragons are cool. So I did not like this change. Yes, they're pretty much the same thing as far as how they attack. And I do know that the tadpoles are connected to the giant walking frog aliens. I get it. But I'm just saying, I like the dragons much better. I would have left them in. In EDF 4.1, the creatures generated out of what they called the underground tunnel. And they look like this big giant anthill. And they'd be all around the levels, behind buildings, near water. And you'd have to go around and destroy them all because they'd keep producing monsters, and before you know it, your screen is full. In EDF 5, it has essentially the same thing, but instead it's called a transport anchor. And it's a big pillar that falls down the sky into the ground. It's got this globe on top of it. That is what transports the enemies onto the battlefield. You'll have numerous ones throughout the level, and you just got to shoot the tops of the globes out to keep the monsters from transporting into your area. I'm going to switch gears now, and I'm going to look at a few missions. Up first, I'm going to look at Encounters on Return. It's on EDF 5. Now this is essentially the same mission as Crimson on EDF 4.1. The only real difference is you start on the opposite sides of the beach, and in EDF 5 they put a road in. That is essentially the difference in the two. In both games, once you defeat the first set of enemies, they start coming down from the hills. You wipe out that set, and then they come down more on each side of the hills. So basically the same thing. It isn't so bad that it's a repeat mission, because it's good for armor pickups and weapon pickups, so it's not too bad. Up next is Brute Force for 4.1. and Plane of Conflict on EDF 5. Now on Brute Force, you have a bunch of Hectors. And of course the Air Force comes out and takes out some, and then you got to take out the rest. On Plane of Conflict, instead of Hectors, you have the aliens and the walking frogs. It's basically the same, that's the only difference. Both of them had all the other enemies showing up, from the bees, both types of ants. You have the spiders, so it's the same. You just swap out the Hectors and the frogs. I'm going to throw in something that I left out in my review that I forgot about. In EDF 5, you actually have a couple missions that have weather conditions in the game. You have a few missions that there's some snow. There's one or two that it rains. They also have fog in a couple levels. Now out of the three, the fog makes more of an impact on the game because it makes it difficult to see your enemies. So you got to get a little closer than you want to see them. So that's a nice little element to add to the game. Makes it a little bit more challenging. That is the end of this video. I'd like to thank you for watching. I appreciate any support from likes or subscribes, comments. But this is Moke, and I'll see you next time.